Okay, welcome. If this is the first time you've watched one of these Make Better Health Choices, it's no surprise because it is the first. So let me just explain. I've got Desi with me today. Desi, hi, say hello.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, we've been planning on doing these for a while now. Finally, we got to do it. Yay!
So as you can see on the title of the bottom of my screen, this is called MBHC. It's a companion series of videos which will be going along with the PHS. Now, if you haven't heard of PHS, that stands for People's Health Service. So you've all heard of the National Health Service. This is an idea to basically bring together all the different complementary health practitioners into a community, if you like, which is regionalized and localized, so that we can offer a little bit more of a consistent, not we, but as a group of people, we can offer a more consistent and maybe effective way of teaching and sharing information for people who might like to try maybe more natural methods or approaches to keeping themselves fit and healthy. And because we've got this lockdown going on at the moment, well, it depends on when you when you listen to this, it might have finished a long time ago, but at this point in time when we're recording this, there's still a lot of anxiety about this COVID-19, and of course group meetings are severely restricted. So what we thought was, like some of these sort of popular doctors who have moved online to share information, they're doing podcasts. We're now offering our practitioners in the community an opportunity to share what they're doing and their expertise, and then of course people, if they choose to, can contact them. So Desislava Stefanova, I don't think that's English, is it?
No, it's not. It's Bulgarian, actually.
Okay.
But I came to this country in 2005, so I've lived in one place. I think this is the one place that I've lived the longest. So,
where is that?
Yeah, I would consider myself a local in Bushy.
And you go by the name of Desi, which makes life easier.
Yeah, Desi is good. That's what my mom calls me. Well, when she's angry with me, she'll call me Desislava.
That was a bit like my mum. She used to say Christopher.
Yeah.
Normally it was Chris. So give us a bit of background, Desi, because tonight we're going to be talking about a service which is called Psych-e. Now, I think that 99 out of 100 people out there aren't going to know what that is. We'll come on to that, but just as a sort of point of reference for people, sort of what made you and how did you end up finding out about this? Because something must have happened.
Well, yeah, it did happen. So I was living a nice, what I thought was a beautiful family life. I had the most amazing children. I was proud to be called the best housewife, who also went to work. So I used to be a teacher in a primary school. So life was quite busy. And looking back at this time, I don't really know how I managed to do all of this. So the most beautiful house and the most tidy environment, and cooked dinners and everything. And I just identified myself with that, being a mom, being a wife. We had the most amazing family. So that was what I was very proud of. And then at one point when that got taken away from me for, whatever reasons, I found myself completely losing my identity. So I didn't have a husband. I wasn't a wife anymore. I still was a mom, but somehow the fact that I wasn't a wife anymore was a complete shock to my system. So for a good half a year, I was bumbling away, going through crying and laughing and crying and laughing. It was just constant roller coaster of emotions, not really wanting to live anymore because I didn't know how to live in this different way. So at that point, the only thing, I could do some, another thing about me is that I've always been into natural health and healing. So homeopathy was a big part of our life as a family. So my kids haven't had any antibiotics in their lives. But somehow homeopathy couldn't help me in those days of proper emotional troubles. The only thing that helped was tapping or EFT, because it just took the edge off this heavy emotion that I had, and then I could actually think clearly. And in one of those periods of clarity, I got a book. It's called The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, and he explains how our subconscious mind creates our reality. So I'm starting to think, what's going on? Why have I created this reality? Well, what was I creating? Why did I create that? I was still not sure about all of this until the final pages.
Just stop you there. I don't think anybody can believe, can they, that they are creating their own misery. I still think that almost everybody who said that if they're in a really messy, horrible place, they would never point the finger at themselves.
Well, I was pointing a lot of fingers, and there was a lot of fingers pointing at me. Mostly the fingers were pointing at me. I was pointing at this other woman. I was calling her names, and I was angry. But a lot of fingers were pointing back at me. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't this enough. I wasn't that enough. So at the end of that book, there was a little mention of a process called Psych-e. And that was explained that was the way that we can change our subconscious beliefs. And I said, oh, okay, well, I wonder how that works. And that took me on a bit of a journey. A year later, I had become quite a proficient Psych-e facilitator. So
thanks for that. So would you say then that it's this process, the psyche, is about dealing with trauma or dealing with the subconscious mind, which by its very name means something that that's going on without us really
knowing,
being involved in it. A bit like when I damaged my back, like I'm thinking, God, this is quite hard to walk, and I'm actually having to think about walking. And mostly, when you haven't got a bad back, you don't have to think about it at all. It just happens.
So that is the thing. This subconscious mind actually creates everything. It creates your pain, it creates your happiness, it creates your relationships, it creates your health, it creates your skin rashes, it creates your cancer, it creates everything.
So Psych-e is aimed at that specific thing, is it? The subconscious mind, is that what?
Yes, that's what we're dealing with Psych-e. We're actually reprogramming what subconscious beliefs there are on the deeper level, the subconscious level of the mind. And when we do that, it's not just, okay, let's change a few beliefs here because, let's do that. It's not really as simple as this, because sometimes people might have these certain beliefs because that will help them to progress in their journey, because usually when we have these struggles, they come with some lessons to learn. So before we change any subconscious belief with the Psych-e process, we actually check and we ask for permission from, this will sound to some people a bit strange, but with their higher self or what you call your divinity, your soul, your creator, whichever name you want to call this higher power, which knows what's best for everyone. And so we check with that, and when we have permission, then we go about and we change that subconscious belief from what it was to what instead people want to have. Say, for example, in my case, I had this big belief, or it's not, can't put a size to it, but it was a proper strong belief that I wasn't good enough like I am. I wasn't enough, I wasn't worthy, I wasn't lovable, I was just not good enough. And so I had to change that because I didn't like what I was experiencing. I had all these anxieties and worries, and obviously I lost my marriage. So I had to think about this and, you know, change these kind of aspects of me. I'm worthy, I'm lovable, I love myself, I deserve to be happy. And statements like that. When we change these beliefs, we put the new statement into like present tense and positive.
Well, these things you talk of, they're not uncommon, are they? They're out there all the time. So, I mean, I must admit, I'd not heard of it. I mean, I've heard of hypnotherapy, energy healing, Reiki, psychotherapy, sound healing, tapping, EFT, but I hadn't heard of Psych-e. Is it some kind of secret club?
Sounds like it. And I had that same question to our trainer, the instructor who was teaching us the basic level. So why is it so secretive? How come I've never heard of it? And the answer actually came about towards the end of the first course that I did. The reason why everybody knows about tapping, the reason why everybody knows about say yoga or hypnotherapy is because there is a lot of freedom in how people can interpret and apply and put their own stamp on things, and they just, you know, give these therapies their own flavor. Now with Psych-e, I am not allowed to change anything about the process. I'm not allowed to put anything from me into it. I have actually promised and like gone into a contract, if you wish, to not ever try to change the process because I don't like it, or because I think I know better, or because I think I'm more clever. And I am not qualified to teach. So again, to preserve its purity and effectiveness. And Rob Williams, who's the founder and originator of Psych-e, he talks about the Psych-e thought form as a, you know, there is the thought, everything has a thought form in this world. So Psych-e thought form, because it has been protected in such a way that we are not allowed to change it and mutate it in any way. It preserves its power, it preserves its efficiency, and that's why when we do the process and we do the changes that we do with it, are long-lasting, they're effective, it happens quickly, it's very easy, it's very efficient, and there is no, oh, maybe let's see my work, or no, it does work. And the reason is because it's being kept to its purity as it was originated at the beginning. But having said that, Bruce Lipton in his book talks about it. So it's not a secret, it's just not for everybody. It's not for people who want to be more creative and want to put their stamp on things. No, here we do it exactly as it is prescribed. And so obviously I can't teach you how to do it. I can just facilitate the process for you, which is what is the most important, really, because
so
life-changing.
you've answered my question about how do you get qualified, so that's good. But so how do you actually work with someone? Is there some kind of mat or table or something that
There is no mat. There is no table. All we need is the person's arm, preferably one of the arms, maybe a leg if they can't use their arm, because the way Psych-e works is through muscle testing. So testing the strength of muscles. For those of you who haven't heard of muscle testing, it's a very effective, efficient way to communicate with the subconscious mind, because when I say, for example, a statement, I love myself, I say it with my consciousness, because I'm using my, conscious, I'm aware of what I'm saying. I love myself. But if at the same time, in the subconscious level of the mind, deeper inside, you don't really believe that, this statement causes like a confusion with the whole system of your body. And for a very short, like maybe a second, 2 seconds, well, less than that, a second span of time, all the muscles in your body will have an interruption in the electrical signal. So they're going to be weak. So if I'm pressing down and if I'm saying I love myself and I press down on my arm, it will be weak if I don't believe that. So we are checking, we need the use of the arm to check whether certain statements are true or not true with regards to our subconscious programming. And then we go about and we change them. If they're weak, if the muscles are weak, and if we then have permission to change these beliefs into the positive respective alternatives, then we go about and we change them. And because I've done quite a few of those different levels of training, luckily, now I don't need to have people next to me in the same room. I can do the muscle testing on their behalf from this chair here, sitting, and Chris in the other side of Watford, sitting in his room. I can do a belief change with, I can help you change your belief over distance because of this what do we call it? The phenomenon of surrogation. So I muscle test on your behalf. So your muscle responses are going to be here in my body. So, and then you can do the balancing afterwards. I'll tell you whether to cross your legs or whatever, because there is a crossing of legs. It's repeating of statements. So certain points sometimes. It just depends. The whole this process of changing the belief is called a balance.
So taking that one step further, if I don't need to be there, do I need to be on the call?
Well, not really, because, we know from quantum physics that everything is entangled. You don't even need to be on the call as long as you want to do something, because I don't want to be, it's not fair, it's not a good idea to go behind people's backs and checking, I can change your beliefs now. No, that doesn't work like that. But as long as people are aware and they're expecting and they want and to have work done, they don't even need to be on the call. They can be texting. We can be texting and I can tell you, do this, do that, and just do it over distance.
So
to believe change. Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
So how do you know it's been reprogrammed? I mean, like, what happens? I mean, like, you say, oh yeah, I've done it, and I'm like, oh, I didn't feel anything.
Well, normally, if it's a big trauma, people might feel a bit of an emotion going through the process. So the balancing process can be sometimes you will know that something is happening, because you will feel an emotion, some feeling will resurface, some ideas will come up. But it's quite good because it's painless, it's efficient. I don't know why more people don't do it. It's just great. And then you will know that eventually in your life, things are going to start to change. You're going to change your perception of how the world is. You're going to be more happy, I suppose. Yeah.
I mix with quite a few people who are involved in complementary health. I mean, because that's the nature of the PHS. And one of the things that comes out very often, I forgot what I was going to say now. What was I going to say? It was to do with what you...
Something to do with how do you feel afterwards, and how do you know it's changed the program?
Yeah, I've forgotten my thread completely on that. What I will say is, and I'll come back to it if I can remember what it was.
Yeah, all right.
But there's a huge amount of people out there at the moment who, you know, not just with this virus, but because of the way the world's changing, and it's changing quite rapidly. You know, every day something else has been happened. You know, one place in the world, and we're all connected, as you say. So, is this technique like capable of helping people through things like low self-esteem? And because you know, there's a lot of people out there that don't even know that that's what's causing the issues they've got in their lives. They really don't have a clue how to, even where to start with something like that. And is psyche something that people can say, well, you know, I'm going to give this a go, or do they have to have some kind of belief in kind of this natural energy type work? I mean,
You don't need to have a belief that it will work, because it will work, because it just does. Self-esteem, we can check. You can muscle test. I love myself, and if it's weak, you know you don't. But usually when we start with somebody new who hasn't had any psyche before, we usually start with anything that they'll remember that caused them to lose their happiness, or what caused them to, usually there will be some traumatic event in their life that caused them to, you know, like it's like a cut-off date. For me, it was this divorce. And we start with this, unraveling this event or situation, or a person said something, or whatever this event is. And we first get rid of the perception of stress. And when I say perception of stress in psyche, or perception of a stressful situation, it means that whenever we have a trauma like that, one side of our one side of the brain, one hemisphere disconnects, and it's only one. We just rely on the one side of the brain to be able to solve the problem, and we can't solve it if both sides of the brain are not working together. So this is what psyche does. It manages to connect both hemispheres to work together with regards to a certain situation. And I'm not saying we're going to be erasing the memory. No, we are just going to be releasing this perception of stress, and connecting the brain as a whole, in a whole state, to think about the situation in a more holistic way, if you want to say. So that's how we start. There's also something else that we call finding the messages of a situation, or a person, or an event. And they usually come in the shape of, for example, well, ideas could pop up, or statements again, belief statements. So we do those, and then as we go along, usually the simplest way to describe it is, a person says, oh, I don't like my life, it's this and this and this and this happening. And then I say, okay, you don't like that, what do you want instead? And then we go from there. But we try to clear any kind of stress, perception of stress, any trauma that's possibly connected with this current state of the life. And then we say, okay, what do you want to create now? And we go from there.
That's, I mean, all this is quite interesting. And while you were talking there, I remembered what it was.
Good.
What it was like, I hear a lot of people talking about blockages,
Hmm.
emotional blockages, which then can manifest in physical impairment. Now, it could be a bad back, or it could be headaches, or it could be stomach issues or gut issues, all because there is something happened and the person's not been able to move through it or
Mm.
accept it or whatever. Is psyche able to support you in these types of situations?
Absolutely. And I said already, we start with the what caused this pain to appear. We clear that. We find any other messages that this pain is bringing to the surface to the person, and then we build it on from there on. But it's absolutely, that's how it works.
Mm.
We might not go straight into, okay, I have a blockage, let's release it. We might go and talk about this blockage first and see where it comes from, because it might come from a completely different it might be telling us, we might think it's one thing. We think, oh, we have a, like in your case, Chris, well, we have a bad back. And why do you have a bad back? Because, and I'm just making it up now, because I feel unsupported, or because I feel that I'm doing all the work and nobody else is doing any work, or it could be all sorts of reasons. You know, how we interpret situations, and then they manifest into our body is very different from one person to the other. And that's why I don't know how doctors treat painful knees, really, when the reasons for, say, for example, painful knees could be all sorts.
Yeah.
Or painful hips, could be all sorts of reasons. I don't know how they, if when you go to the doctor and there's a consultant, and he will say, okay, we need to replace your hips. Okay, but why? Why do my hips need replacing?
Yeah. Might be because you walk funny.
Or might be because
Yeah.
you had a birth, well, something happened while you were giving birth,
Mm.
and you didn't resolve that stress. And it was kept there in the body, and it could be so easily released, and you might not need to have a hip replacement. I'm not saying it will happen, like, for sure I can stop you from having your hips replaced, but but there is a reason why pains appear, and
Mm.
they're not the reasons that we would normally think, oh, it's because I'm old. No.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. What I'll do is I will get your details from you afterwards, and I'll add them to the bottom of the video in the notes, so that if people would like to, just talk to you about what it is in a bit more detail and whether it's relevant to them, or find out a bit more information, then you can signpost them off to your website and stuff. So
Yeah, thank you.
excellent. Well, thank you very much for doing the first one. I know it's a bit daunting, but so so that's it. That's a wrap. Thank you, Desi. And I'm unsure what the next one is. It's a bit of a rush. There's 2 or 3 candidates, but hopefully we will be doing another 2 or 3 of these in the next couple of weeks, and the series will start to roll. So please check up on other videos as and when they appear. They're all going to be quite interesting and different ways of looking at things, as Desi has explained with Psych-e. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.